Welcome, 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 Wheel of Time fans, to another Wheel of Time discussion video. And in this one, we're going to be diving into something that has quite the amount of debate around it within the fandom. And that is the idea of Wheel of Time spin-off stories. I'm going to go ahead and throw up a spoiler warning here because we're going to be going in depth about various aspects of the before and after times for the Wheel of Time, especially with character specifics included. So go ahead, and I'm sorry, but you gotta bounce. Or if you don't care, that's cool. Stick around because it helps me in the analytics drastically and hurts me a lot to have people leave. But when it comes to the idea of adding to the Wheel of Time canon, this is something that my own opinion on has changed over time, because originally I loved the idea of getting more Wheel of Time, especially if we had Robert Jordan still around. Like, I don't think anyone would be upset having Robert Jordan himself add additional Wheel of Time entries, but unfortunately that's impossible, and the best we could hope for is Brandon Sanderson himself returning. But as far as I'm aware, Brandon has never on the record said, I want to return and write more Wheel of Time. I've heard him discuss the possibilities, but I've never heard him say directly, this is something I plan on doing. So we can't even assume that Brandon himself would be returning. As much as I'd love that, we just don't know. And the next layer that's kind of made me a bit more hesitant to be just like, yes, more Wheel of Time, always please, is as I've gotten better read in fantasy, I've learned that having as satisfying, as well received an ending as the Wheel of Time did is not exactly what I would call common. In fact, it's pretty rare. The Wheel of Time, not universally, but among the vast majority of fans, ends great. People are very satisfied, especially with Rand's arc in particular. Constantly I'm hearing people say that Rand al'Thor is one of the best characters in all of fantasy, and I think that's largely due to the fact that he is just so well handled at the end. It's not flubbed, the ball's not dropped, you feel a grand catharsis. And you're playing one hell of a dangerous game if you're going to start messing with that level of success of a conclusion. So in this video, I'm going to go over some of the popular ideas that are thrown out there for a continuation of the Wheel of Time, what stories need to be told. And that need is the crux of the discussion here. What do I feel like as a fan I still need to see from the Wheel of Time? And we're going to get into that quite a bit. So again, spoiler warning, jumping into this right now, 3, 2, 1, go. Not the most popular one I see brought up, but the one I can most easily just dismiss, get it out of here, no, is occasionally I see people bring up that they want to see more from Rand himself, and I'm sorry, but absolutely not. The conclusion with Rand's character for me means he goes off, he retires, he's just doing what he pleases because he's earned that, and the idea that we need to, like, John McClane style pull him on out of retirement for one last give it a go is just a solid nope from me. I really do not like this idea because it would just destroy the level of total completion I feel with his character. We've seen this many times before in fiction, where a character has an outstanding story, but then because money and sales, an author will drag them on out of the conclusion they reached to throw them in something that feels like a diet version of the story they had before. And I don't think that could ever be more tragically done to a character than Rand. He totally and utterly cannot be brought out again. He already was up against the biggest bad that you could possibly imagine, so the stakes couldn't be higher than his already established story, and he's so powerful at this point, what could possibly be a threat to him? You'd have to do some annoying nerfing of Rand, and I'm not about it. It's a solid no for me. This story in particular gets a red light. I'm going to do a red light, yellow light, green light system, and this one's a red light. Total nope. Total nope. Now, for this next one, this one's talked about quite a bit because apparently there was some form of plan for it already in the works before Robert Jordan's unfortunate passing. And that is some kind of Matt Tuon continuation. I will say once again, I just want to reiterate, if Jordan was still alive, totally yes. I completely trust him. He'll handle it in the way he wants to, and I'm sure it'll be great Wheel of Time. That being said, I don't know if I trust anyone else with this, because Matt's a tricky character to write. Even Brandon struggled with him. He admitted that, but I don't see how an author could come in from the outside, understand the character of Mat well enough to write an engaging story with him clashing with the Seanchan. I'm very afraid when hearing this concept that it could accidentally just be boiled down to a gimmick of repeatedly, oh, Mat clashes with Seanchan culture, and that's the story. He occasionally has to deal with like assassination attempts on Tuon, and that unfortunate, and it just doesn't evolve beyond that. That would really drive me nuts. I don't want that at all. So this one gets a solid red light from me, unless we had Brandon himself coming in, and even then it's a yellow light, because my favorite stories with Mat are when he's off being a rogue, doing roguey stuff, not if he's in like a political court. And if he's doing a continuation with Tuon, that's kind of where he has to be, right? Either going back to Seanchan or being in the Seanchan-controlled lands in the Westlands, and it doesn't seem conducive to his character, and you need someone with a lot of experience working with Mat to do this story right. And I'd even be cautious with Brandon himself. Not that I don't trust him, I absolutely do, but the guy's got a lot on his plate, and I don't know, I'm just nervous to add anything at this point because of legacy, and we'll get in that at the end here. But there's a couple more of these I want to address. A Tam al'Thor prequel. This is one that I've even touted before, that I really like the idea of it, because Tam is a magnificent character who we still surprisingly don't know a ton about. We understand some broad strokes things of his past, and all of those are quite tantalizing, and seem like they would lend to a prequel story quite well. But believe it or not, I was watching a movie recently, actually Solo, Star Wars story, and I realized how much Han Solo's character was damaged for me due to that movie. Now, granted, you can like that movie, that's fine. I don't think it's as bad as some people say, but it really hurt my love of Han Solo, because he went from being this mysterious, lovable rogue in the original Star Wars to this kind of failing goofball that I just didn't love at all. It was kind of just annoying to see him be mishandled in certain ways, but also just aside from that, it just did away with a lot of the, ooh, who is Han? What's he been through? How is he this jaded guy? And he kind of just has this same arc that he then repeats in the actual Star Wars movie, and it just hurt it. So looking at that, I then kind of in my brain just implanted it on Tam, and even if we had what was a generally pretty good story with Tam, it would still do away with a lot of the mystery that makes me enjoy his character. I like that I don't know how exactly Tam became a Blade Master. I understand some of the things around it, but I don't know the details, and I don't know how he achieved his rank within the military. But it's badass that it's there, and I've built it up in my head, and could anything an author write really do what I've built up in my head justice? I don't know. This one I'm going to give a yellow light to. Certainly not a green, because it's just, again, it makes me kind of go, maybe? And maybe isn't enough when it comes with messing the Wheel of Time's legacy. Next up, we have one that's quite a bit different than what we've already talked about. And I see a lot of people discuss this one, and that would be the story of the White and Black Towers reunification post the last battle. How would it be handled? And you could tackle this story a bunch of different ways. Like, you could go left, right, up, down. It could be a very ambitious Amyrlin and whoever's leading the Black Tower really aggressively working to rapidly reunify and take place in the span of a couple of years, or it could be the type of story that jumps ahead hundreds of years in increments and shows the a slow evolution of how this came back to be together, and Ashamon's reputation was restored throughout the land. So many different approaches could work out. And I'm not gonna lie, in terms of my own Wheel of Time nerdy interest, this one has a lot of appeal. It really kind of perks the ears where I'm going, I kind of want to see that. But again, there's some danger, right? Because there's some easy misunderstandings that an outside author could have. I'm sure there's endless notes on what exactly could occur here from Jordan, and I think I'll give this one a very hesitant, kind of greenish yellow light, where I would buy it. I think this one, of all the ones we've talked about here, would certainly sell the most copies. A lot of people would be very interested in this if they heard, like, hey, they're doing some kind of future text into how the White and Black Tower could reunify, and they even, through that narrative, explore in just a backdrop the actual progression of the Westlands as a whole. Maybe, mention the power of Andor growing or something along those lines, or even shrinking, some grand empire forming. You don't know. Give us little hints and teases. You could do a lot with this. That'd be very fun. Maybe even have like a cameo from Rand at one point that's very minor. Stuff like that. That would certainly be fun for fans. I think this one has the least risk with a pretty high reward, but again, it comes down to legacy. And let's just go ahead and start talking about this because I've mentioned it a few times. As I said, I'm grateful for the Wheel of Time's legacy. We, unlike most fantasy series, have an ending that is loved. And we even have a prequel, which is generally considered very good. New Spring, I think that told the one Wheel of Time story that needed to be told outside of the main series, and that's Maureen'S Origins. I think that did a perfect job of that. It certainly proves that you can do these type of stories for Wheel of Time, but it was under the direct pen of Jordan, and we don't have that anymore. We have Brandon, who I love, I have faith in, and if he wants to do these, I'd be excited for, but I don't know if he's down to return. So I'm hesitant again. For me, where I'm sitting now, I like the Wheel of Time canon being what it is, and I don't feel this driving urge to throw in more to the mix. I think what's happening right now is the proper legacy for Wheel of Time, and that's to be respected as one of the greats. That's constantly debated online. If you go to r/fantasy, people are debating Wheel of Time right and left, and authors are constantly throwing it up as one of their main inspirations. There's so much there, and I think as time goes on, the Wheel of Time is just going to achieve greater and greater status within the fantasy community and be appreciated more and more. So that I'm okay with, and adding something new every time is just basically inserting an element of danger, and I don't like that. I certainly never want to feel like the Wheel of Time is being milked, and that's what I'm most afraid of with these stories. If there just isn't enough sustenance there, especially with like the Matt Tuon spinoff, it could feel very dry in comparison to what we once had. I'm definitely setting myself up for if a Wheel of Time offshoot is ever announced in the future, having this video thrown back in my face. People saying like, oh, Daniel's gonna hate this, even though I'm saying, no, I definitely still could be excited. I would just be also very cautious. And that's really the message I'm trying to get across here. I would be worried. And the only ones of these I would be very excited for need certain circumstances around them, like an author I very much so would trust, someone who I feel like is a good fit and definitely understands and appreciates what the Wheel of Time is. I think the TV show is a very good natural next step for the legacy of the Wheel of Time, assuming it's good and lives up to what the series is. I think that's just the best way to put it. That is what should happen for the Wheel of Time from here. And if it's a bad adaptation, give it another go, try and do it again until we get one that actually does this series justice. Although as time goes on, I learn more and more, I'm more convinced this TV show will at least be good. I'm also very open to the idea of a Wheel of Time video game. I think there are certain elements in the Wheel of Time that absolutely lend itself to being many different kinds of games, whether it's a Total War-esque strategy game, a Skyrim type first person, or even a third person Witcher approach. Like, there is a lot you could do with the Wheel of Time's world and it work out spectacularly. All of that feels like a good next step. I cannot shake the feeling for some reason that doing more canonical written editions would just feel like a step backward. And here's the weirdest part of all of this. If you wanted to take any of these stories that I just talked about and instead do them as a video game, I would actually be much more open to that. Even if it is like, this is a canon new video game, in my head for some reason I'm like, yeah, that's good, let's see that. Because there's just a difference between like a video game's canon add-on and a book, which I will need to look at in a different lens. Instead of just enjoying a game that maybe has a decent story, if a new Wheel of Time book only had a decent story, I'd be furious. Anyway, this is just my thoughts on a very complicated subject, and I'm making this so I can hear your thoughts in the comments down below. So if you're a Wheel of Time mega fan, let me know what you would like to see next for the series. Are you different than me? Do you definitely want a, hey, give me another book, and here's what I want it to focus on? Or are you kind of in a similar camp where you're open to it, but you're very cautious? Or are you even more extreme than me and it's just no additional Wheel of Time needs to be written? How do you feel about a possible video game? And do you feel like the TV show is a good next step? Let me know in the comments down below. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. And have a good one, y'all. Peace. And of course, I'd like to record a special shout out to my latest high tier Patreon, Your Last Great Night. That's a good name. Hope you're having a good one there, buddy. Peace. Sorry, I started stretching there. I'm gonna use this take though.